Holmes was born. Then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
Beware, your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thank you, Sinistar. I appreciate it. I was just playing your game last night in a basement. That is a hard game, Sinistar. If you don't collect enough Cinnabombs, forget it. You're done. Man, that's hard. And Jim Crawford?
Yeah.
Is that how I say it? I said your name right?
That's the second time.
Have you played Sinistar before? It's an arcade game.
I feel like I must have. I'm old enough, but I don't. I know that. I know that picture. And I know the voice, but I can't think of any mechanics. Is it in space?
It is in space. It seems asteroid/defender.
Right. Okay.
And you're just hanging out. You're just a ship. You're like, I'm fine. I won't bother you. You won't bother me. And all of a sudden, ships just show up and spin around you, and they're like, hey, what's up? And then you shoot them if you want, but they don't do anything. You feel so safe and secure, like the party's coming to you, until they build Sinistar, which is just a giant skull metal mouth.
So you're trying to stop them from building Sinistar?
I guess it doesn't tell you that.
Right. No, you figure those things out in those days. It's very old school.
Exactly, which brings me to my point. You made a game called Frog Fractions.
I did.
What was that like?
What was the game like?
What was it like to make that, and what were you thinking? Actually, we should start with the actual game. Would you mind describing Frog Fractions to us?
Well, it might actually be easier to describe the creation process. So, are we starting here with the presumption that it's going to be spoiled?
That's up to you. I would say, yeah, but I don't think
for a real discussion, we kind of have to.
Good point. Maybe let's figure this out together. How about we presume that people know or will know that there's more to Frog Fractions than meets the eye? It starts off like an educational game, but then stuff happens.
Right, stuff happens, and that's enough. Well, for what? Well, are we? If we don't want to ruin the experience for people, we really kind of just have to stop talking. I
don't think so. I think that's.
I'm assuming this is going to be like you can go request this and watch it later.
Yes, it's on the iTunes.
Beware! Spoiler alert!
Thank you, Sinistar.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll leave it at that. Well, we'll talk as much or as little about the details of it as you'd like, Jim.
Okay, so let's just say, if you want to play Frog Fractions, then you should just go play it and come watch this later. Because I'm going to blow the whole thing wide open. I think it's necessary. Just go play it right now and then come back later. All right, what was the question that prompted me to ask about that?
I asked so many questions at once, which is a problem I have. I wanted to know what it was like to make it, what were you thinking when you were making it, but also for people who hadn't played it and just will never play it because they're like that.
Sure, okay.
We could tell them a little bit about it.
Right. So, the story is that a friend of mine, Rachel Sala, came to me one day in 2011, and she said to me, my brother and I were going to make this Missile Command clone, and I did the art for it, and he flaked out on the coding. Do you want to make this game with me? And so I was like, all right, I've never made a game with art before. And so I coded up a Missile Command clone with that art, and it wasn't very fun, and I spent like 2 months trying to make it fun. I did this research where I was like, okay, Missile Command, that's a great game. What have other follow-ups to Missile Command done? Were there sequels? Were there like spiritual sequels? And I did all this research, and there are basically no sequels or spiritual sequels to Missile Command that are really in the vein of Missile Command. So,
is there Missile Command 2? I thought there was.
I think there was a Super Missile Command that never got released.
That's right. Yeah.
And I actually played at California. This is a total tangent, but I want to tell this story. I played at California Extreme 2-player Missile Command, it's a cocktail cabinet, and it has to be because of the way you actually sit across from one another and you're shooting at each other's cities. and missiles spawn. It's pretty sweet. It's also unreleased.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah.
But not something I could have used as inspiration for my game. So I experimented with all sorts of control schemes and chaining systems and that sort of thing. And I couldn't really find the fun. And so what I did was I decided, well, I'll make it interesting in other ways. So I added the upgrade system. And the upgrade system, when I think of upgrades in games, the ones I really like are ones that give you significant new abilities, as opposed to like, you have 2% more mana now. You get 1,000 of these, and maybe that changes the game. But I like, in Metroid, like, oh, now I have the space jump. I can just jump infinitely. That's pretty cool. And so I wanted to make sure every upgrade changed the game in some meaningful way. And so, the first thing you get is the lock-on targeting, which means, oh, I don't have to aim anymore. Wait, what game am I playing then? What? And then you get the static cling tongue, which, oh, I just eat the entire screen at once. Am I playing a game now? Is this what? Where's the challenge? And what the game is keeps changing. So I did that for a while, and then I couldn't think of any obvious ideas for more like ways to change this game to make it a new game without actually really just completely changing the game. And so I added space, and then I added Dance Dance Revolution. And I think it was that version that I showed to Tim Ambrogi, who was been a friend of mine for a couple of decades now. He was the lead programmer on Jamestown.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a fun thing to watch, his arc of success there. And he, what I had there, like, I didn't at the time really understand what I had. And so I had written this tutorial system that, like, every time it adds a new mechanic, it pops up a little window saying, here's how you use this mechanic. It pops it up in the corner, and like you could ignore it, and that's what he did. He just refused to read anything, telling me that he didn't have the time for it because he was trying to play a game here. I don't know. I can't divert my attention. I think he was just being an asshole. Can I say asshole?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a accurate emotion. Often assholes are just
right. It's actually a really useful stance for a playtester to take.
The asshole stance, yeah.
Right. Or in this case, specifically the I don't want to read any text stance.
Right, which is how people often feel when they want to just play a video game, though those aren't the people that you hear from a lot. There's a silent majority.
Right. They don't deal with text, so they don't write anything to you.
Right, exactly.
But it is if you play, and I play tested the hell out of this game. If you look in the credits list, there's something like 30 people, and it is very much you need to watch them as opposed to listen to them. You watch what they're frustrated by. And you ask them to. Tim calls this faucet mouth. You ask them to constantly be stating what they're thinking internally, and you have to use that information to figure out how do I actually fix this problem as opposed to what they think I need what they say I need to do to fix the problem. But in this case, he was dead on. He played. He didn't read any of the tutorials, and he was stuck on the pond for half an hour, even after buying the diving helmet upgrade, which existed at that time, and there was a little tutorial pop-up saying, "Okay, now push down to use the diving helmet."
Gotcha.
And he told me after that half hour that going underwater, he compared it to discovering that you could burn bushes in The Legend of Zelda, which is it's basically one of my favorite moments in video games where you suddenly discover there's a lot more to this game than you thought. There's this network of underground caverns, and I can go explore this now. And I realized then that I could actually provide this experience in my game. And I went and I ripped out all the tutorial stuff, and I went and tried to make everything a lot more discoverable, and ended up putting a lot of work into that. And that's the core of the game for me, is that moment, going underwater. Discovering that you play the game, and it's set up like it's set up like Galaga, where Galaga is a one-screen game, and you have it everything about it, like if you've played that sort of game, telegraphs to you that this is the limits of the game. It's within this frame. And part of the fun is realizing, wait a second, this game's been lying to me. This is not the limits of the frame. It never lies outright, but all the implications are that that's where the game takes place. And you realize that's not actually where the game takes place. There's more to it than that. And everything after the underwater is really just there. You know, I tried to make it entertaining, but it's really just there so that there's something to discover.
Huh. So it's an excuse to try to give people that feeling again of, I didn't think that the game was capable of doing that. I thought
Right. And then after that, it's just like, okay, now I know I want to entertain people for half an hour.
But it does a lot more than, maybe not intentionally, but it does a lot more than that. At least for me, it speaks to the idea of games being in specific genres. It's a parody / tribute to a lot of different genres. It's
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's a game about video games for me in a lot of ways, and not all of your games are like that, but the ones that have resonated the most with me have been.
I would like to know more about this opinion of yours. It's a game about video. I mean, it is a game. I mean, so a bunch of my friends, at least I never counted, but at least 3 of my friends have described this game as autobiographical, where this game is about. It is basically Jim in video game form, and playing this game is like hanging out with me, and making this game. I have felt this. Making this game is kind of like what it was like to grow up being me, and.
Whoa, that's pretty amazing, and so many people. The game spread like wildfire, as you know.
Yeah.
It just resonated with people immediately. It made them feel like they found something genuine and special, and they wanted to share it with everyone.
Right.
I got it sent to me like maybe 50 times in one day, and I played it, and I was like, it's all right.
Yeah.
Until I dug deeper.
Right.
And then it felt truly special to.
Right, and you're lucky that no one spoiled it for you. Like especially if you got 50 links to it, you're lucky that no one spoiled it for you, because I really feel like the magic of that moment is so much more powerful if you find it for yourself. And honestly, the ideal would be if you believed that you were the only person to find it. Mm-hmm. You know, if you like everybody else is playing this, boring pond game, and I'm the one. I can go tell all my friends about this.
Yeah, and it's not that boring.
That's. I mean, I wish it were more boring.
Really?
Yeah. This was something that Chris Remo said on the Idle Thumbs podcast when they were talking. They talked about this one episode, which was really fulfilling because I'm a big fan of those guys. And he had said that he had wished the edutainment part of the game was more on its face an edutainment game, because that would make the subversion more powerful. Because
like if the fractions really were fractions?
So we really were teaching you about fractions, yeah. And that were the game for like 10 or 15 minutes before it got crazy. Because like when you start the game, the title screen is plausibly a game about fractions, but as soon as you start the game, it's pretty clear something weird's going on. And I did that on purpose. I did that because, I wanted to leave a lot for the player to discover, but I had to give them something, or else they would just like say this is stupid and walk away.
Right. Which a lot of people also did.
Right. And that's evidence that I couldn't. That I was at least towing the line somewhat, because some people found it and some people didn't find it. And I actually don't have numbers on what percentage of people found it versus what percentage didn't, but like some of my half-assed analytics indicate that it was something like 15% of the people. Actually, 15% of players find the underwater part.
Whoa, that's it?
That's I wish I had better numbers here, but I don't.
Interesting, because it's I guess it is not. People are so used to just having games handed to them these days, and it's a whole different generation. I don't know how old you are.
Yeah, I am 33.
All right, I'm around that. I'm 36.
Yeah.
And I grew up on stuff like Sinistar, where I figured out games aren't going to hand things to me.
Right.
So I figured maybe I could look around as this was a weird game. But there's a lot of people that have actually said Frog Fractions is like nostalgic for them. Because they grew up on edutainment games, which to me is just mind-blowing. But I guess it adds up that people in their 20s would have grown up with games.
Your 80s gaming experience was in the arcade then, not in the classroom?
Yeah, that's right. No, the idea of video games, I mean, there was like Donkey Kong Jr. math and stuff like that. But not of, it wasn't widespread, it wasn't Flash, it wasn't graphics like that. It was, recycled stuff from other games. So.
Right, yeah.
So do you feel as though the game is autobiographical? Is that intentional?
I added things. Everything that I put in that game, I put in there because it was entertaining or resonant or funny to me. So, in that sense, I guess every work is autobiographical. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I do think that there is some aspect of like me putting myself into this game, especially because this is kind of how indie games are, where it's one person making all the decisions, and they kind of can't really help but make a game that is in some way just that is themselves. Sure,
because that's all you have to work with. You're just putting yourself into it. It reminded me a little bit of Borat. You ever see the movie Borat?
I never saw that.
It's a movie. There's a guy who is putting himself into this other character. The actor is named Sacha Baron Cohen. He puts himself into this character named Borat, who is a reflection of his attitude on some things. But the whole idea is it's only funny because everyone who Borat interacts with doesn't know that he's an actor. They think he's really from whatever country he's from.
Right.
And for you, it's a similar situation, I'd imagine, because so much of what made Frog Fractions work is that no one knew it was going to be this kind of comedy / subversive game about game mechanics, game about what video games can do. So now people are going to be expecting that from you.
Right.
They see it's from you. Like when I first saw the game, I was like, Twinbeard Studios sounds like something that's going to be on Leapster or some edgy. I really bought it. But now everyone knows you. You're like,
right.
So does that change what you can do moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Frog Fractions, and like if you look at my ludology, so to speak, ludography rather. It's almost all about subversion of expectations. Mm-hmm. And when you expect that from somebody, it's kind of ruining everything. It just, I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, you just need to make people think it's a good game, then make it a bad game," and that would subvert expectations. But I feel like we already get that enough just from everyday life.
You expect it to be a good day, and then it's a bad day.
Yeah, or like you're really looking forward to such and such a game. Even in the game space, you're really looking forward to this game's release. Oh, it's awful. Never mind.
When's the last time that happened to you?
Well, the example that comes to mind, I feel like I don't want to be a jerk here. But
it's just your taste in things. You wouldn't be a jerk. You're not saying they're bad people. You're not.
The example that comes to mind is actually Crackdown 2.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, how do you feel like that game flopped?
I really feel like I don't want to be mean-spirited here, but I really feel like they almost it's almost certainly a scheduling thing. It's almost certainly they had a year to make it, and then they did what they could. But what it felt like was that they were taking this existing game, and I guess they had to re-implement stuff because they took out a lot of features that I liked, like the cars transforming when you level up your car ability. They took the platforming was already kind of janky, and they made it even more janky. Mm-hmm. And this was on purpose, but this is kind of emblematic of the entire process. They took the existing city, and instead of making a new city to play around in, they kind of just broke the old city and made it ruinous.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
And it's it's still fun because they didn't ruin it enough to make it not fun, but it's not like in that generation. We just gotten we gotten Just Cause, and we gotten Just Cause 2, which was an enormous step up in terms of just let's just perfect this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Take this idea that has a lot of promise and make it really fun. They did that with Assassin's Creed. They take Assassin's Creed. This is a kind of a janky game with a really lot of promise. Assassin's Creed 2 is really good. And that's kind of what I was hoping from Crackdown 2. Is Crackdown was kind of janky, had a lot of promise, still pretty fun. Crackdown 2, not an improvement.
Mm.
That's just my
money or that makes perfect sense. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. They're like, the Frog Fractions guy likes Crackdown? I thought he was going to be out, playing a bunch of fruity indie games, not playing.
I play those. I play those games.
In general, I think that it's going to be fun for me to see how people take to you on this show, because I think a lot of people might have you've got a beard. They thought he's probably like a burn.
Just one beard, though. Just only one.
How did the Twinbeard idea come up, by the way?
I literally had two beards for a while, for like 5 years. I had, the beard was down to here, and I braided it into two braids, like a Viking.
Awesome.
And I liked it at the time, and then I was thinking, I like this, but it's really kind of scruffy, so I started trimming it. I started trimming the beard around the braids, and then I did that for a year. And then I realized the braids were getting thinner and thinner and thinner because there was nothing growing to feed them. And
so then you had to go no beard or one beard?
What I had to do, I had to make a decision. I could, if I let my beard get scruffy again, I could rebuild them, and have nice thick lush braids again, or I could continue trimming until they vanished, or I was braiding like 3 strands of hair on each side. Or I could just cut them off, and I could give them a quick death, noble death, and that's what I did.
But you can always grow them again. That's the thing about beards, is they can always come back.
They can, but it took me several years to get to the point where, I feel like this length is a reasonable beard length, and I feel like the length I had is a reasonable beard length. But in between, there's this no man's land where you have to just not give a fuck how you look.
Sure.
And that's where I was at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be there anytime in the foreseeable future,
Well, speaking of your future, now that, you've been making games for a little while now. How long? Yeah. Actually, how long have you been?
I've been making games since I got a Commodore 128 in 1992.
Wow.
But basically Frog Fractions is the first game that I made that anybody outside of my circle of friends has played.
Okay.
And this is because up until a couple of years ago, none of my circle of I moved to the Bay Area and I started doing game jams, and I met all these game developer and game journalism friends. And when a game journalism friend plays your game and likes it, people find out about it.
Right. I've been told that.
Happened before. And I was never I never cared enough to market. I actually did dabble in the games industry 5 years ago, but it was just I do not have the energy to do this and also have a life.
Was that in the independent industry, or were you working for?
That was actual. Well, it was in the middleware. In the middleware division of the industry where we were making game-making tools, and it was just I can't handle the hours, basically.
And it can be quite thankless, so I'm told.
Right, and middleware especially.
Yeah.
You go to industry events, and they're all happy to talk to you until they find out, you're a middleware developer, and then they wait for you to finish your sentence, and they walk away.
Oh, but it's such a key part of how anything happens.
It is. And I thought we were doing something awesome, but it was it was. I moved on from that with, I've been looking at the industry from afar, thinking maybe at some point I could go back in once they get their quality of life act together, and And for the past couple of years, it actually seems to be taking. It does seem to be getting back together, but it's getting back together in like the Farmville space, where like if you want to make a game like Farmville, you can totally work 40 hours a week and have a life. And that still wasn't good enough to entice me in. But then I made Frog Fractions. I got laid off from my job in August. The company folded, and it's a web development job. I was very comfortable there, probably too comfortable for my own good because I wasn't very well paid. But it was very like laid back and familial, and I had a lot of autonomy, which was nice. But I got laid off from that, and I moved. I decided I'm going to finish Frog Fractions. I'd been working on it for about a year at that point, on and off. And I finished it for IGF. I set that deadline for myself, and I put it out there, and when it blew up, I realized I have this reputation now. I have a name now. I can actually go and possibly make games using this reputation and make a decent living doing that on my own terms. I don't need to wait for the entire industry to catch up with what I need to make games, which is really, and it's that those fruits are still growing. I'm not plucking them yet. I haven't gotten paid for anything yet.
Sure.
But
it's got to be such a strange. I mean, on one end, it's amazing and must feel great. On the other end, it's like, well, how do I have lightning strike twice? Now that my mindset is in a different place, how can I like take the mindset that made Frog Fractions and use it to make money? Is that going to ruin the entire thing? What has that been like for you to try to wrap your head around your new direction?
Yeah. So. Well, one thing that's been weird is that when I got laid off from my job, I was thinking, hey, this is pretty cool actually. I don't have this old job that I was too comfortable in to quit dragging me down. I can go be a well-paid programmer in Silicon Valley. And now this shit happened. I'm poorly paid again. And just now I've got my game job dragging me down because I'm enjoying it too much.
Are you already working on Hot Dotson, of course.
Yeah, that was my immediate follow-up to Frog Fractions. That's like, and we'll talk about that. I'm talking to some publishers, working on proposals, and I'm doing the coding for one of Brandon Sheffield's games. And Brandon was the guy who actually, who was the instigator of the entire Twitter blow-up. He was the one who tweeted about that initially. And his circle of friends played it and liked it, and then it blew up from there. But yeah, following up Frog Fractions is something that I've been thinking about a lot. A lot of people want Frog Fractions 2. A lot of people want Frog Fractions HD on iOS or whatever. And I was thinking about, like, what if I was tasked and given a budget to make Frog Fractions 2 right now? Probably what would happen is I would end up making a game that's a bunch of random shit that happens to you for an hour and a half. And it would probably be really entertaining. I'm confident I can do that. But I do not think I can give you the going underwater experience. But, I mean, I think that's actually almost literally impossible with the expectations people would have.
It's like The Matrix 2.
Right,
you can't have that discovery twice. All you can do.
Right. I was thinking about that, and that's actually one of the reasons I have a Matrix. The credits. I ripped off the Matrix credits theme. The "Wake Up" by Rage Against the Machine. When I asked one of the musicians to make me something like this, it was so that I could, yes, I saw the parallels very directly there. Where like this game is about like, oh, here's the discovery and the reveal, and I'll never be able to follow that up with something similar.
Right.
Even if I were to make Frog Fractions HD, which is something I would love to do, like I had so many ideas that I forego because I decided I need to get the game actually released. So many things that I want to do with that, and so many things that I think could be improved over the existing version, like not least of which is the frame rate. Like Flash is not very performant; it's all software rendered, and so even people with like great video cards would chug during, for example, the underwater scene where I'm doing the full screen bloom effect.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to address all those issues. But as for the direct follow-up, like Hot Dachshund, anybody who's who's listening to this, you should just go check out Hot Dachshund right now. It takes, This is, I guess, this is. What was that?
It took me about an hour.
Right? Did you enter the Konami code?
I tried everything.
Yeah.
Because I had to know. And it's a catchy tune as well, so it's not like it was a bad time. Did you sing that? Who sang that?
That was I was working with that with a friend of mine, with Alex Eisner and Shannon Thompson. Shannon did all the art of the flaming dog, and Alex did the music, by which I mean he searched SoundCloud for something that was Creative Commons. He searched for hot dog, and then cleaned up the audio on what he found. And this was just we put all this together. What I wanted to do was just, I'll put this thing out, and people are just going to poke at it for hours trying to figure out where the game is, and there's no game there. And then I felt guilty about that, and I'd actually made it explicit that that's what I was doing. I just wrote about that in the game description.
Sure, but it's still something I love to send to people and not tell them that. It
Right,
allows.
but, hey, this is what the Frog Fractions guy did next.
Right. Oh, you like Frog Fractions? This will blow your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And it does blow their mind because that's a cute dog.
It is. It really is. That's actually Shannon and Alex's dog.
Oh, really? Oh.
He doesn't really breathe fire, but.
And what a weird mustardy, relishy back that dog has.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
I enjoy it.
It's also kind of delicious.
I'm going to tell you as a fan what I would want in a Frog Fractions HD.
Okay.
I would want it so you can't buy it. You can only send it as a gift to someone who doesn't already have it.
That is basically the use case I'm imagining. That this is only going to be purchased by people who played the Flash game, and then they're going to show it to their friends.
Right.
But yeah, that's just assuming build the shopping cart such that it just assumes you're sending it as a gift.
Right, and there's on Steam and a few other digital download services you can do that because I would want to encourage the consumer, to make it to have it blow up even bigger than it did for the kind of people who just hear a Flash game and say forget it. But if you're gifted something, you have to play it.
Right, now there's an obligation there.
Yeah, exactly. I'd want to make people feel obligated. I would pay for the opportunity to make people feel obligated to play Frog Fractions.
Yeah,
That would be worth it to me. And of course, whatever new ideas you have that you couldn't put in the original would be great to see. But now that you have a name and opportunities, do you want to make a more conventional game? Are there games that you always wished you could have made, but you didn't have the budget or the clout to get them done? And now that you may have those things, are you looking to go towards stuff that's got more mainstream appeal, or are you?
I'm talking to publishers about various things, and there are a bunch of games that I want to make, but the games that I really want to make don't seem to be the ones they're interested in.
That's not too surprising. I don't. Can you give me kind of a general feel of one of the games you might be interested in making?
I want to the project that I would love to jump into is it would be a stealth-oriented roguelike in the vein of System Shock 2.
Okay.
And stealth in the sense of both you don't realize it's a roguelike, and also the primary mechanic is the stealth mechanic. And I have a whole lot of ideas for where to go with that. But it's a little bit too, I think, outside of what the publishers know that I'm good at. The publishers I'm talking to are ones who want something who are expecting something amusing and subversive like Frog Fractions. Which makes total sense, and honestly, I've never made a horror game, so I don't know if I could do it well. So maybe they might be wiser than I realize.
I don't know. If I were you, I would be excited to grasp the opportunity and do stuff I hadn't done before. So.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I want to do.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. But I mean, I've got some irons in the fire that I guess I probably shouldn't talk about them. But it's super exciting to be where I am. It's super exciting to have people. It was late October when when the game started blowing up, and I was watching the Google Analytics numbers, and these were numbers to me. These were like I was watching this number go up and down, and like this is the number of people playing your game each day, and I was thinking that's awesome. And I was watching the Twitter search for Frog Fractions scroll by, and that was awesome. And then there was a bug where I had wanted the Visa signatures to all be uploaded to my website. So when you signed it, it would then upload that image to twinbeard.com. Mm-hmm. And there was a bug where that wasn't happening. And like a month after release, I finally got around to fixing that bug, and the signatures started flooding in. And this was so much more of a concrete representation of the fact that many people are playing my game than just the numbers in Google Analytics. That it was really a powerful moment for me to see, like, yeah, this moment is not just awesome because, like, oh, suddenly, like, people like this. Suddenly, people like me and want to make games with me, and maybe want to fund my games. It's actually more awesome because I have given, multiple tens of thousands of people this hour of giddiness. That's actually the place that I think about most when I think about this is a great place to be in. What was that in response to? I think I feel like I've gone way off your question.
Not at all. I'm happy to hear all that. It makes me worry though that if I were you, I would be worried that I was the video game Carl Weathers, and I had just made Action Jackson.
Yeah.
Which everyone loved.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Didn't that have Vanity in it?
I don't know.
I think so. You know Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed from the Rocky films.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had this apex with
Yeah.
Action Jackson. Then I don't know why, but then just no more Carl Weathers. His moment came, and that would be. I don't want that to happen to you.
Yeah, this is something that I actually do think about, and probably more than I should. Probably been dwelling on it more than is healthy.
Yeah, I would be thinking about it all the time if I were you.
Right. Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to duplicate Frog Fractions. I do think that most likely that success, that particular form of success, is something I'm never going to see again. Mm-hmm. But I do think I can make games that are just just good in a more traditional way, and entertaining in a more traditional way, and even maybe even games that are about discovery in a more traditional way, like a game that is full of secrets, like a Zelda.
Yeah.
And
well, you're still you.
Yeah.
And I like to think that you being you is why Frog Fractions was a success. Of course, it was about the stars aligning in the right place, but it was also because it's your brain that made it.
It was my brain, but it was also luck, and it was and so I remember when I said I'm confident that I can make a game that would be entertaining for an hour and a half. I feel like that's, I think one of my superpowers is the ability to write funny code, in that, like, to write code, you're actually sitting there for, like, multiple hours tweaking things and fixing things that are broken. And if you're trying to do something that's funny, most people, they think something's funny once and then it's not funny anymore. Mm-hmm. I think jokes are funny over and over again. Like, if I think something's funny the first time, I can probably hear it 20 more times and still like, oh, yeah, that was great. And so I have this ability to, like, when I make a change to my code, like, when you're the human, when you turn into the human in Frog Fractions after the text adventure part, like, I can go tweak for like an hour. I can go tweak, like, how fast should the bugs come in? Like, how long should it be until you realize you're fucked? What's the funniest amount of the rate for them to come in at? And I can go tweak that and make that decision each time. Like each time, oh yeah, that was funnier. Oh, that's less funny, because I keep finding it funny. And so I've got what's up?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is one of my superpowers, that I keep finding the same joke funny over and over again. And I think people trying to make funny games, that's something that you either need to do that, or you need to like have a bunch of really consistent playtesters you can cycle through. I don't know how you do it if you didn't have that superpower. So I'm confident that I can keep making funny games. I can do that.
And
but
do you think that's part of why Frog Fractions blew up the way it did? Because clearly it was meeting a need that people weren't getting met.
I do think so. I do think that was part of it. But I feel like it was only that in combination with the discovery, with finding the underwater. I think that like if you went underwater and then the rest of the game was crappy, like you discovered a crappy game, I don't think that would have been as exciting.
Do you think that's something that's missing from video games right now? Is that sense of discovery mixed with that really fresh coding comedy?
Maybe.
Coding comedy. I mean, that's like a whole new concept you created.
Maybe. I mean, when I grew up, and I grew up playing games in the 80s, and one of the things about that that's unique to that time period is that there was no internet. You couldn't go to GameFAQs when you were stuck on something, and you could plausibly believe that there are many, many things about every game that you had not yet discovered. Mm-hmm. Whereas nowadays, you read facts and you read GameFAQs or whatever. You go to a message board, and you can be confident that everything, like after a week after release, you can be confident that pretty much all the coolest stuff in this game is there for you to read about. Mm-hmm. You can just go read down the list, find it in the game yourself, and experience that stuff. But there's no playing a game for 6 months and wondering if that's it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like when your friend comes up to you in the cafeteria and says, "Hey, I busted through the wall in Super Mario Brothers in level 1-2, and there was this crazy looping underwater world after that." That you were like, "That's bullshit. There's nothing like that." Because like the previous week he'd made up some shit, and you went home to try it, and there was nothing. Sure.
Well, that's a really hard. I tried that for 20 minutes before I got it.
Yeah, no, it
you really
is.
had to believe. You have to have faith. Like
it's a hard one to duplicate. But it did exist, and it's those moments where the secret actually exists, and you've seen it yourself, and you had no idea it was there. It's those moments that lend credence to all the other claims, all the other, what if there really is this secret game under the water, And one of the things I wanted to do with Frog Fractions was give that back to people. I wanted to give people back the pre-internet state of this is a video games are mysterious entities where anything can happen. And I wanted that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask, did you get the sense that that's something people wanted? Also, my cat is attacking the set. Oh, he's destroying it.
Hello.
Every once in a while. Yeah, he's all right, I guess. He's hungry. So, did you get the sense that that was something people really wanted, or is it something that you?
It's something that I did it because it's something I wanted, but it's also something people do talk about, and I feel like it's something that isn't really discussed because people are so impatient with their games nowadays that of course they would just go to GameFAQs instead of sitting and wondering. Like sitting and wondering about a game is not something that you realize is a great thing. Mm-hmm. It's not something that it's more of a pleasure that you need to work at than the pleasure of just finishing a game in 6 hours.
I've been reading this book called Blink. It's about how people make decisions and how they assess things.
I love how there's a tail inside of the frame there. That's great.
Yeah, an angry tail. A lot of the book is about how people think they know what they like, and they think they know why they like it, but they just don't, because that's not how the brain works. We remember an experience we had, but each time we remember it, it's like playing telephone with yourself, and you refilter the information until you end up having an assessment of why things worked that totally isn't true. And I think that you're right that people don't know that they like a game to be strange and not particularly, I don't want to say catering, but in the old days, like I was playing Sinistar with this 13-year-old boy last night, which sounds weird, in a basement. And he couldn't get over the fact that the game wasn't easy, and he kept dying. Yeah. And he thought he should be frustrated, and he was like, this game sucks. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why do you keep playing it then? He's like, I don't know. It's too hard. But he couldn't stop, and he was smiling while he was playing it. He felt an adrenaline while he was playing it that he might not have gotten from Skyward Sword or something along those lines. So so to not listen to what people think they like.
Well, this is something that it's taken me, I've been working through this stuff in my own head for a long time, where I realized what I think I want is actually not what I want. And I've been taking pains to organize my life such that I am forced to do things that I will eventually appreciate that I did. Well, I wanted to talk about something specifically. I hadn't really finished my thought before, which was that what I wanted to do with Frog Fractions was give people back that pre-internet state of wondering about games. And I wanted to do that in Frog Fractions, but I also wanted it to extend outwards to other games where you played Frog Fractions and you discovered this mysterious undergame that you didn't know existed, you didn't suspect was there. And I wanted you to kind of like, when you went on through with the rest of your life and you play other games, you play a Call of Duty, maybe there's this secret undergame in Call of Duty that nobody's discovered, and maybe I could be the first person to find it. And I feel like if you have that mood, which pretty much every gamer had in the 80s, that the experience of playing games is just so much richer, because there's so much more potential there. And I don't know if I was, able to actually. It certainly didn't work for me because I made the game, but I don't know if I was actually able to give that mood to anybody. That was my, like, if you want to talk about a artistic intention, that was probably the noblest of my intentions, making Frog Fractions.
Well, I hope it worked. For me, it made me optimistic about future games I might play, but unless I know you made it,
I'm actually really hopeful that since Frog Fractions is so popular, that it will actually be also influential. And if I were making those other games, I would not know how to incorporate Frog Fractions' influence into them, even if I really liked it. So I don't know how realistic that is. But I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful that better designers than me will figure out how do I make my game like this other game I liked, without just blowing the budget, because like Frog Fractions, I made it in like 3 months of work time. It was a year of clock time, but like 3 months of my time, and it was probably like half of that was polishing the pond, and half of that was everything else. And so basically, if you want to just literally do the Frog Fractions thing and make like, oh, here's this other game, you're basically doubling your project budget in order to really do that. And I wonder if there's an easier way, an easier, a cheaper way to give people that feeling.
Well, even just like in Metroid, you walk to the left. I've talked about this on the show before. That's a game where it came out in an era when it was about walking left to right in like every game. Super Mario Brothers is about that. But that was a game where you're actually supposed to walk left first, and you won't figure that out the first time around. You'll get this object that's just a ball, and you're like, I touched a ball, good for me. But not unlike Frog Fractions, until you press down, you don't know what it does. And then
that's really funny. I never made that connection. Yeah.
I always think about Metroid, and the frequent listeners of this show will be familiar with that observation. Who was I talking to? Way Forward. Some guys at Way
Sure.
Forward. They felt the same way. It's interesting. The people I talked to on the show, the two things that it seems to be common is this idea of taking back local multiplayer and also taking back the sense of mystery that games used to have, which we've been talking about.
That's interesting.
Yeah. David Hellman, I don't know if you know him. He did the
Sure.
art for Braid.
Yeah.
He's working very hard on that same goal, which is to bring back the mystery that he loved in the first Zelda that he hasn't gotten in recent
Right. Do you happen to remember what the Kickstarter project he had was? Wasn't there a Zelda comic or something?
Yeah, it is a comic that's Zelda focused. Hopefully he'll be on the show to talk about it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's I don't. Yeah, clearly you didn't talk to David Hellman about it. And I don't know if your other friends who make games have been talking to you about it too, but it just seems to kind of be in the cultural subconscious of game developers right now that this is a move to go in, which is awesome for me.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be. But I've been ignoring the questions. I feel like a jerk. We've been really talking. I've been really enjoying talking to you for like an hour. We've never talked before.
I guess it has been that long.
Yeah, that's fun when that happens. Slow Holmes, frequent viewer of the show. Hi, Slow Holmes. Thanks for joining us again. He
Hello.
asks, what concept album would you make a fully fledged game for? If you like music. I don't even know if you like music.
Who doesn't like music? I have to. I don't know anybody who doesn't at least listen to the radio. Off the top of my head, I think the most fun and maybe most appropriate as well album to make a game for would be Ween's Chocolate and Cheese.
I love that album.
It's a great album. And there's this spoilers for Chocolate and Cheese. My favorite moment in that album, and I think it's actually like very reminiscent of the kind of things I was doing in Frog Fractions. Like, I love their sense of humor. Is they have the early in the album they have this song called "Spinal Meningitis Got Me Down," and you listen to this song, you see these guys are going to hell. They're really just, it's a first-person account of what it's like to have this disease, played as a comedy, basically.
Right.
And
Absurdist.
you listen to that song, and then you look at the track list, and I think it's the last song in the album is called the HIV song. And
Would you want to make this concept album, Jim?
this game,
Yeah.
to which this is the soundtrack.
Right. You're right.
and
Concept game.
You listen to this whole thing, you're waiting for the HIV song to come and just be the most disturbing thing, and it's basically just them saying AIDS over and over again. Like no actual content, just saying the title of the song, HIV, just talking. Sorry if that spoiled it for you guys.
I think that spoilers in general, Frog Fractions maybe being one of the exceptions because that truly is it's a concept game in that way. But when you're listening to that Ween album, you forget emotionally where you're going to end up in the end. I've listened to it countless times, as you can with comedy. It sounds like even if you know a joke is coming, when it really resonates with you, it's funny.
Well, yeah, I think it's funny over and over again.
Right. I wonder what it is about you that makes you different in that way.
I don't know. I've wondered that.
Are you the same with let's say when it's not comedy that's hinged on the surprise? When it's, like Reservoir Dogs or something.
Just any dramatic story, it affects me the same way. That's true. The same way each time. So yeah, that's just me. Like, maybe my emotional memory is just really strong or something, where I remember the first time and I'm re-experiencing it.
Yeah, it could be. It could be also that you're just so in the moment and feeling what the craft does that you don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just really susceptible to the kind of things that filmmakers do to like kind of force an emotion on you. Where like I cry really easily at movies, and it's kind of sometimes I'm angry about it. Sometimes I'm crying and I'm like, I cannot believe this piece of shit made me cry. This is the worst movie.
When can you think of the last time that might have happened?
Not off the top of my head.
Did you see Rocky VI?
No, I didn't.
It might work on you.
I bet it would. Like, it really seems like filmmakers have this, like, magic cry dust they can just sprinkle on the film. Oh, Jim's going to cry now. All right, our job's done. We don't have to make a coherent story at all.
That's so great, though, that you can get a full experience out of some stuff that's not even that good. I would love to be able to do that.
Well, except that I'm always cognizant that it's not good, and I'm like I say, I'm annoyed that, God damn it.
Yeah, there's
this does not deserve my tears.
I'm being a jerk and ignoring the questions again. I feel bad. R. Xanadu asks, you say this is the first game you've created with art in it. What other games have you created, and why was that the case for so many years? I thought you meant with original assets or something.
I mean with artist art in it, like actually drawn by artists as opposed to me. You know, I if you look at you go to twinbeard.com, you go to my games page, and I guess there's Huggy Bear too, but Huggy Bear was made during the development of Frog Fraction, so that doesn't count. But everything before that is just like I threw together some crap in Photoshop, or before that in Deluxe Paint, and you can really tell the difference. Like, this is one of those things that kind of pisses me off as a non-artist, is that how much more fun good art makes a game.
Yeah,
it really, like, this. You think it's the gameplay, but very often what's missing from, like, I played one of my games and like this game is a piece of shit. Then you add art to it. Oh, suddenly it's fun. Suddenly I'm enjoying myself.
It's funny. Last week's guest, Bo Blythe, who did Samurai Gun, which is a neat game. He's working on LA Death Disc for the LA Game Space. He has to put the animation in like right away, or else he'll hate like every game he makes, or at least not like it. So he has to stick the art in. And then I'm glad you brought up Huggy Bear, because I forgot to mention it in the post. That was your Molly Jam game, right?
That's right, yeah.
You should let people know that exists.
I gotta ignore this phone call for a second. Okay,
sure, you can take it if you want.
Oh, you know what? If she calls again, I'll totally answer on air if that's what you guys want.
You know, the more we get to know you, the better. Because this show isn't really for the viewers. This is for the aliens who will discover the remnants of our culture thousands of years from now. And find out what the Frog Fractions guy, his whole life was like.
I can get into that, sure. Yeah.
So Huggy Bear is a game you made with artists for Molly Jam. It's another great game about games, to me. And for people who don't know, Molly Jam is Peter Molyneux, the fake Peter Molyneux. People got together and made games based off his weird ideas. He's a fake man. Yeah. So tell us about Huggy Bear.
The Huggy Bear, I didn't realize this until much later, but it actually fits right in with my the kind of games I make. There's a word for that I should be able to think of.
Idiom? Style?
Maybe idiom is a good one.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go with that. But what Huggy Bear is trying to do is, it gives you something to do where, you know how most video games are about murder?
Mm-hmm. I did notice that.
This is a game that is about murder, and it's doing all the things that games do to try to make you want to murder people, but it's also trying to make you feel horrible for doing that. And so you're compelled by all these mechanics and reward systems to continue doing this, to continue murdering people, but it's also making very clear that what you're doing is a terrible thing. And so in the way that the bear has game mechanics forcing him, the tweet was, you play a bear who can only get oxygen by hugging people. Unfortunately, hugging people breaks their bones. And so this bear, his life has these certain constraints placed on it where he has no choice. He's compelled to do this thing that he feels horrible about doing.
To stay alive, yeah.
You're right, exactly. And, you know, I express that through, like, the bear's tears. And I'm trying to make the player feel exactly... and the point that I didn't realize I was trying to make with that game, that I realized, like, 6 months later, and this happens to me a lot, was that games are always set up, and this happens with, like, action movies, too, where we're going to designed this world such that the easy and fun thing to do is also the right thing to do, the morally good thing to do. Where, in an action movie they establish that, this guy, why is he working against the protagonists? Oh, he's just evil. Oh, he just characterized, he killed his own henchman, he's a bad guy. So we can go kill him. And be completely morally in the right. And in games that happens all the time, where it's kind of necessary, where like, in a lot of games it's even just implicit. Like, of course these guys are the bad guys. They design the world to telegraph to you that you should be killing these people to make you feel okay about killing people. And then you go do that because that's a lot of fun.
Like in Mario Brothers 1, there's a little guy coming at you. Like, oh, he could be cute. He could be a friend. Well, he touched me, and I hadn't got a mushroom yet. He killed me. I hate that guy.
Right.
Now I hate all guys. And it's just inherent that because he killed you that one time, you, like, owe him some death.
Well, or you could even just say it's self-defense. But
that's right.
Then the game also gives you points for killing ones that you could have just jumped over.
Sure.
So you get this reward system. And in Huggy Bear, it's a little bit more of a realistic setting where, like, you're getting points for doing this, but you're not actually establishing the people you're killing as evil. Those are just regular people, and you're killing them because you have to, but you're not supposed to feel good about it. And I guess my point there was that this is not something that this actually very rarely happens in real life, that the most fun thing to do is also the morally correct thing to do. And if you play a lot of games, you are reinforcing to yourself this idea that, like, oh, this gave me points. This gives me, like, particle effects that are awesome to look at. I just burst that guy like a grape. That's awesome. And you're reinforcing this idea that, like, all these things are morally correct. That the fun thing to do is the right thing to do in all cases. And this is I'm not accusing people of not being able to separate them, but it does affect your instinct. Like I remember distinctly, like I was playing Grand Theft Auto 2, and later on, later in the day, I was looking around, I saw a police officer, and I was like, I better go kill that guy. That was my immediate reaction, and I didn't do it. I immediately realized this is a terrible idea.
Sure, but if you didn't have the same kind of filters in your brain,
right,
have the same sort of CPU, who knows?
Right, and then there are also things where, like, it's a lot more borderline, where this is how date rape happens, where, like, I'm on a date with this person, and it would be really fun to have sex with her, and I think she wants it, but I'm not really sure. I'll just go for it.
Right.
And
he's maybe drunk or passed out, and then before you know it,
right. And if you at situations like those where the filters are a lot more ambiguous, where you can be swayed by the idea, by the instinct that what's fun is also what's right.
Yeah, on the internet, people just take it. Oh yeah, I just swore at a bunch of strangers and hurt their feelings, and it was really fun, and therefore it's right. Or I stole a bunch of video games someone else made, or not stole, I pirated a bunch of video games someone else made. I got them without paying for it. It felt good, therefore I'll defend all that to the end in terms of their ethics. Yeah, and Huggy Bear, there is a time where that dissonance isn't quite there in your game. Yeah. You get, I can't remember what it's called, but there's like a temporary like invincibility.
Yeah, Huffy mode.
Huffy mode. Yeah, where you're not invincible because you're never going to be harmed by anything but your meter going down and your own ethics.
I don't know how that fits into the theme I just described. I'm not sure that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. I'll defend your game to the end because it made me feel good. That brings you up to a climax of really you're invincible to your own guilt feelings for just a brief period of time, and you're like, oh, now the game is letting me feel like a normal video game where killing is 100% good, which only makes it slam you down so much harder when not short after that, at least for my playthroughs.
So I like that idea, but what doesn't work there is that the more people you kill in that mode, the better your mood is after that mode ends. Like, even after you come down from the high. So, like, with that in mind, I would have to redesign the game. I did that because that's how the game mechanics had to work for it to be a fun game. You know, you got a good combo, therefore you get to play for longer. But no, you're absolutely right. That is what should happen. Is the game immediately ends immediately after Huffy mode, and I should have had to figure out a different way to make the game extend.
It ended for me right after that. As soon as I got to that mode, I was like, "Oh, I can keep playing the way I was," but I couldn't keep playing after that mode, and I just
that happened to you as a person, not to the game, right? That not happened to your avatar.
That's where me and the game met.
Yeah. And I think that like almost every game I make, I make it with the idea that someone could walk away at any point, and like with games like Futilitris, I feel like that's the win condition. You know, you realize this is going to ruin my life if I keep playing it.
I love that game. I wasn't sold on Frog Fractions at first. But then I played Futilitris, and I was like, all right, I got to dig deeper into this guy's brain. And then shortly after that, I emailed you to see if you could be on the show.
Right.
I want everyone to play Futilitris.
I really like it. I think that, like, just on its own terms, maybe like in terms of, you know, effort and time spent versus value out of it, I feel like Futilitris is probably a better value than Frog Fractions.
I can see that. Yeah, it's it really it's such a beautifully written one-note tune.
Yeah.
In that you and the fact that you know it's a one-note tune, you expect very little in terms of what kind of arc you're going to have emotionally through playing it. And then after 10 minutes, wow, you're in a really different place than you were 9 minutes after.
Right.
Yeah, really, the bang for your buck. I keep ignoring questions.
Right.
I'm sorry. We have 22 minutes left, and Bane Leudel asked a question that I didn't even ask you yet. He says, tell us about the metagame you made for yourself to help you finish Frog Fractions.
I'm
Is
wondering.
Someone who knows you personally? He seems to already know that there's going to be an answer to that.
That name has Elliot L in it, and Elliot L is a person I know, so that might be somebody I know.
Oh, good. I love it when people who know people are in this show and asking them questions that I could never.
And I'm not sure if I actually talked about this, but this was something I played Chibi Robo for the GameCube, which I think is an amazing game.
So do I.
If you like Frog Fractions, you should check out Chibi Robo.
Mm.
Chibi Robo is a game where you play a house cleaning robot, like a little tiny humanoid figure, like probably 6 inches tall, and you walk around with a toothbrush scrubbing stains. And then you also just go on crazy adventures and basically solve. Hey, hi Elliot L.
It is him. Chibi Robo.
Right, just house cleaning robot. You go on crazy adventures and eventually solve all the problems of the household members. Really, just gorgeous game. Not visually, but also just gorgeous in terms of what it does with your expectations and with secrets and with discovery. And in Chibi Robo, I had done this thing where you go exploring, and I went and explored under the little girl's bed, I think, and there was this enormous pile of like crumpled up paper. And the way this game works is you get points by cleaning up. So you use your toothbrush to scrub up a stain, you get 5 points. These are experience points. You level up with them, but they're really just also points. You get points because you like points. You grew up in the 80s, you play video games. Points are their own reward. And I found this big pile of trash, and I was like, score! This is amazing. It was like finding treasure. And I picked up these crumpled up pieces of paper and threw them in the garbage, and I got like 150 points. I was like, this is amazing. And I realized this is something I could do in real life. If I had a scoring system for real life, I could be really pleased when I found my roommates had left the sink full of dirty dishes. Like, oh my, I get to clean all these dishes and just rack up points. And I designed this scoring system for my life that reinforced the things I wanted to reinforce. And I had to, you have to tune it. You have to redesign it after a while because, like, it got to the point where, like, I had friends over and I had to tell you guys have to go home. You're costing me points. I couldn't be
Because
cleaning
like bedtime, you got certain points for going to bed in a
that sort
reasonable
of thing.
hour.
Yeah, that sort of thing, like following a diet. Points for like working on projects, and none of that stuff could I do when I was hanging out with friends. So you guys, you're a point drain for me. So I eventually added points for like socialization, which
Sounds fair.
yeah, it worked. That helped. That helped the design. And you eventually get to a point when you're really cranking on a project where you and ideally, this is every project, but it just in practice doesn't work that way, where you're working on this project and you just realize it's 6 hours later, because you've just done nothing but, like, automatically done nothing but work on this for the past 6 hours. And I eventually did get to that point with Frog Fractions, but I do think that this point system is and pretty much every game I've released has had that mode where, I get to this point where I am working on this just because that's what I do in my life, But what takes me at least up to that point, and what keeps me going between the times when I'm in that mode is the dream of getting a high score, And this is a trick that when I tell people about this, they're like, "Man, I wish I liked points," because that sounds really powerful. Because they didn't grow up playing video games. They don't have that, just seeing a number goes up it's like taking a bite out of a pear, a delicious pear. That's just, and this is one of the things about that I'm addressing with Huggy Bear is that idea of the reward system that is not intrinsic to your morality. The reward system can be used for good or for evil, where I would argue that the gamer score on Xbox Live, I would argue that's using points for evil. I would argue that's like compelling people to keep playing games specifically on your system and to keep playing games for longer than they are intrinsically fun. And I know this because this has affected my life in this way because I am drawn by points where I talked about Crackdown before. I liked Crackdown a lot, but what I did with Crackdown was really unhealthy. I actually went and I found every secret orb because I was compelled to get that last achievement. And that was not fun. That was me grinding through this list. And it took me like 5 hours of one day and like 5 hours the next. And that whole time I was worried. And this was a huge stress on me because I knew I would go waste that time again. I was worried that, did I miss one? Am I going to have to go through this whole list to figure out which one I missed? It was such a relief when I heard the little noise that they make when it was coming up on the last one because I knew I can stop now. It's such a relief.
Isn't it interesting? Yeah. What we think is important can change so deeply and so quickly based on good game design. And I would say that it's ingeniously crafted, the whole achievement system.
I agree.
As proven by its success, but it's insidious. I think it's evil, and I've said it many times. And viewers, me and Jim didn't talk about this ahead of time. I am lucky enough to have so many guests on my show that I just see eye to eye with on a lot of things.
Well, I'm guessing it's because you invite people who resonate with you, whose works resonate with you.
Yeah, that must be. I try to invite. Sometimes I've never even played their games for very long, and then we just end up. Like, we had some guys on who made a game called God of Blades, and they have a reward system in their game. It's an iPhone game where you actually can unlock new weapons if you go to a real-life library. I didn't even know that was in the game, and I was like, you guys are genius. And I had only played the game for a little bit. Yeah, it's a 99-cent iPhone game. Great graphics. Action.
Yeah.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I think, that sort of thing, I mean, encouraging people, the 3DS has this thing where it doesn't really do much with these, but you get play coins, and you can use them in. I can only think of a couple built-in games that aren't very deep, but you get play coins for walking because there's a built-in pedometer, and it encourages you to get out of the house a little bit.
I take it with me every time I leave, just to
Yeah.
rack up points, and it does work in free games that come with it that are actually not too bad. There's that little turn-based RPG.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
yeah.
It's simple, but I keep playing it.
Yeah, keeps working. Who else? Oh, our Xanadu asked another question. I don't want to be rude because we have 14 minutes left. I will ask it. He says, all of my greatest ideas come from either listening to music. Come from either listening to music?
I think there's a
I guess
mixed
only
clause in
listening to
there.
music. What types of activities tend to bring out that sort of imagination in you, Jim?
Well, for Frog Fractions, my best ideas come from conversation with people. And this is something that happened in Futilicious as well, where I would and every other game I've made, where for Frog Fractions I talked about like trying to make the pond and then showing it to Tim, trying to make the pond fun rather, and then showing the result to Tim. And what actually happened throughout the course of that entire clock year of development time was that I had or heard a great idea. I implemented it into the game with the idea that I'm going to get to show this to somebody this next weekend. You know, I'm going to show this to Chris, and I show this to Chris, and he cracks up or whatever. Or in some cases, I realize that wasn't such a great idea, and I fix it. And the ensuing conversation is what gives me the ideas to implement next. And so, like, I was talking to Chris, like, this was during the pond part of the game where I was trying to make the pond fun. It was Chris Cornell, who's another game developer. He made Negative Spacecraft, which I really recommend. You should go Google that.
I haven't heard of that. Okay.
And I asked him, like, okay, I at that point had a target painting system, like a chase cam shooter, and I said, hey, you're a big fan of Panzer Dragoon. You know, what do you like about Panzer Dragoon that I'm not doing here? What would make this game more fun in the way that Panzer Dragoon is more fun? And what he told me was, you know, one of the things I really like about Panzer Dragoon is that you're riding a dragon.
Huh. I would have never guessed that was not your interest in Panzer Dragoon necessarily, but Panzer Dragoon being part of the conversations in your life.
Right.
Part of why
I actually never played it. I think I might have played it for an hour, you know, but I was not a fan of that series, or any chase cam shooter really, you know. But yeah, that has been historically how all these ideas get into my games, is that I get them from other people. You know, I get them from conversations in my life where people say, wouldn't it be cool if, or wouldn't it be funny if? And I get the sense that this has happened all my life, where all my life I've had wouldn't it be cool if ideas, and I've heard people having them. And up until, you know, I started making games and people started actually playing them, I'd never bothered to actually do that. And I think that's the trick. I think is that everybody has these ideas, and nobody ever actually puts them into practice.
And that's a big thing I think Frog Fractions did. It is in so many ways the game that people want to make or think should be made, but they don't actually power through and make it. They're like, oh,
Right.
Wouldn't it be funny if that happened? Wouldn't it be funny if that happened?
And I feel like that's what I was doing. That was my process. And the surprise to me was, I guess, that how many people agreed with me.
They absolutely did, and they still do. Just today, because of the show, I think, maybe it was some people on Twitter said they played it for the first time, and
Oh, cool.
their minds were blown. Yeah, so I hope
awesome.
that continues to happen. I really do hope it gets out on platforms where I think you should make money off it, frankly. And I do think that if it were sold, even if for just $1 or $2 on consoles or somewhere on, it would show people this isn't just a trifle. This has some value. When you sell
Right.
things, it implies value.
There are a number of factors here, and one is that the game is almost entirely about subversion of expectations, and so therefore it's almost fraud by definition to sell it. Like, I've thought about this. Like, if I put this game up for sale, and somebody came and bought it thinking it was actually going to teach their kids how to do fractions, that would be I would feel horrible. But I can't just say, like, on the description page, this doesn't really teach you fractions because that's a spoiler.
Right. That's the whole point.
And another factor is that I feel like being a cheap and shitty-looking Flash game is part of the fun, is part of the subversion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't expect you don't expect much out of a Flash game. You expect it to be one of those single-screen, like, this is kind of, I'll do this for half an hour because I'm bored kind of a game,
Right.
as opposed to the kind of game you really sink your teeth into.
What if not? Of course, it's don't feel any pressure for me because who am I? I'm just some guy. But what if it were part of a compilation? That's how Jason Rohrer did it on DSiWare. He released 3 of his games on there, and you don't know which one's really the important game and which one's not.
Yeah. That's
so
what
if there was
happened
just
with Portal, if you
What's
remember. That's what happened with Portal.
That's right.
I thought that was a really clever move on their part. And Portal is one of those games where people are constantly comparing it to Frog Fractions. I think it's a good comparison. Where Portal's spoilers for Portal, I guess. You think it's a certain kind of game, and the difference here is that the game you think Portal is actually really good. It's actually a really good puzzle game to begin with. But then it sets this certain expectation where like you have this certain emotional scale, and it peaks out at like 3, where that's a funny joke. That's like as emotional as it gets, and suddenly the game is literally trying to kill you. And you're gonna burn alive, and you realize that there's way more to this than you thought. And it kind of blows the roof off of the scale, and that's what gives it that moment its power is your constrained expectations. And that's I had that in mind when I was making Frog Fractions, when I realized that's what I could do with this, was constraining your expectations and then exploding them.
What are some other, before I forget, I want to definitely pick your brain about other games that you think have done that, and games that didn't do that. I'm really happy you talked about Crackdown, and how Crackdown 2 didn't quite meet your expectations.
Well, Crackdown I don't think is really that sort of game.
No, but just in general, to hear your thoughts on other games.
My favorite example is probably Fez.
Oh, yeah? Oh, sure, absolutely.
Have you finished Fez?
I don't know. That's one of those games I feel like I haven't finished it.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Would you be okay with me talking about Fez, because it's kind of a spoiler?
I know being an internet guy writing about video games.
Okay, yeah, so spoilers to the audience here. I'm going to talk about Fez for probably a minute. Fez starts out as a platformer, and this is how they sold it to you, was it is a game where the gimmick, here's the fun thing about this game, is that you can rotate the world, and it's actually a 3D world, and you're playing in the projections of that 3D world. That's a cool idea, and that's enough to sell you the platformer. But you do that for like 8 hours in the game, and it never really gets any harder, and it never really gets interesting. And what you realize eventually is that what you've been looking at for 8 hours is basically Myst puzzles. You're basically playing Myst, and you haven't realized it, and then you have to go back through all this and figure out all the puzzles, how to work the ruins of the previous civilization you've been exploring, and decode the language that they have, and that realization of that's the kind of game it is. And it's not a sudden revelation like in Frog Fractions. It's a fairly slow realization that kind of creeps up on you. And
the places you find the language can be huge, just eureka, mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I thought, actually, my guess, I don't have any insider information here, but my guess is what happened with Phil Fish there is very similar to what happened with me with Frog Fractions, was that he had this idea for a gimmick, a platformer gimmick, and he tried to make it fun, and he couldn't. Because I think if he could have made it fun, he would have made, it is pretty fun, but it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't ramp up to the kind of thing, doesn't ramp up to the difficulty in the way you'd expect a game to, like a Portal it starts out very easy, and it gets, with the exact same mechanics, it gets very complicated, and you really have to think about how to solve this puzzle. Fez never really does that, but it does have a different kind of challenge that you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but it's not fraud in the sense that Frog Fractions would be fraud selling it, because there is still, like, if you wanted to play that game just to explore a world and to jump around and to rotate the world, you can still do that and get like an 8-hour game out of it and finish the game.
Yeah, sort of. Like, I finished that game, but did I finish the other game? I'm still
You can
not
get
sure.
an ending. And, yeah. And the ending is like, the second ending is not that, it doesn't, like, explain that much more than the first one does, if anything, they're both equally good, I would say, in terms of, like, satisfaction. I feel like there should be more examples, but nothing's coming to mind. I'm glad I thought of Fez, because for a while my mind was blank, and Fez is, like, my favorite example of this.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda is good. Legend of Zelda is, like, the game that... It doesn't have that... It has the burning bushes thing, but that's just one of many, smaller discoveries in that game. But that is very much a game about exploring a world and exploring mechanics in a world, and yeah.
Did you, one of the ones I think about a lot is, Cave Story. I don't know if you liked that.
I like Cave Story, but I'm not actually sure what you're talking about in terms of mechanic. Like, you're talking about hell?
No, there's a scene where an old man falls from the sky suddenly. And that I already like. Just you walk into a room and an old man just plummets.
Sure.
And if you talk to the man, which is what you'd think you should do in a video game, old man fell from the sky, better see how he's doing. If you talk to him, he dies. But if you decide to try to pull out a page from the game's script and be like, you know what, I'm just not going to talk to the old man, then he doesn't die. If you jump over him in that part and just try to move on the game and see if it lets you skip a cutscene, which seems unskippable because it's a huge gap you have to jump over. You have to jump at just the right time.
Right.
Then you unlock a whole different branch that the story goes down.
I never knew that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. I was pretty happy for him about that. That's I recommend Cave Story to a lot of people, and a lot of them say, it's an alright Metroid-ish game that's a little bit too linear. And that's one way you can end up experiencing it, and I don't blame them for not liking it, but the way I ended up experiencing it, pretty deep. Pretty good stuff in there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I should send it to you. Oh, crap, we have 1 minute left and the show's over. Rats, did I talk too much? Was there anything you wanted to talk about that I didn't let you talk about because I talked the whole time?
Well, my mind's racing in circles. I can't think. I don't know.
No, I think we did good, and you can always come back. Would you come
totally
back?
do that. Yeah.
Would you? Aw,
Yeah.
that's nice. Yeah, I had a great time. So they should follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, Mogwai_poet.
And why are you Mogwai_poet on Twitter?
I could tell this story. I mean, the basic story is that I liked how these syllables sounded together, and I liked the image of, like, Gizmo from Gremlins, the Gizmo character wearing a beret. I like that mental image, but really it was just like, that sounds neat. I'll pick that series of letters. And everybody's ascribing way more intent to it than I intended. Like, both words in there are fairly resonant, and neither of them really applies.
Yeah, but he is, to me, he is a poet, that Gizmo. Just his sounds he makes, that's all you need. You get so much feeling out of him.
I never thought about that, yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I didn't think I was going to do that on the show. Yes, well, they should follow you because you're fun. You just retweeted some Kantie West.
Yeah, I was really amazed by.
So follow him and go to twinbeard.org?
Twinbeard.com.
.com. I'm sorry, I always think you're a .org guy. To play all your games.
Maybe I should.
Yeah, you're doing just fine as it is, I think. And there's a lot of great games on there to play, all for free. But
Cool.
I do rich soon. Me, I'm at TronNauts on Twitter. You can watch the show on iTunes. No, you can listen to it on iTunes. just Google Sup Holmes on iTunes. It'll pop right up. We're on the 40. I think you're our 43rd guest. We've had all sorts of people on. Adam Atomic, Jonathan Blow, Anthony Birch, a lot of smart people. Yeah, you are in good company. And you can watch the show reruns on Dtoid TV, which is a YouTube channel. And you can watch a cartoon I made called Teenage Pokemon. But I'd rather you not watch it, Jim.
Why is that?
I'd be embarrassed. You're too good at comedy. I don't want people who are so much better than me to watch it. Only people who are worse. So if you're worse than me, go watch it.
I can do you this favor.
Yeah?
Not watching your show.
Thank you, Jim. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
I guess we should wave goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.